Your company is actually a hardware-based kind of company, isn't it, mainly? But you and much of your education is about management. Where did those two come together?
So actually, the biggest value proposition is probably trust.
Okay.
And now, yes, we do build products which you can really touch and feel, and you can trust in the hardware around. And the hardware, of course, is certified to like very, very high standards. So it does have a very decent and distinct value. Actually, most of what people do is build software and functionality around. But what do we ultimately do? We sell trust to our customers.
But your journey from education to where you are now goes through much of management as well, much more than just IT, in other words.
Yeah, it even some stuff comes back. Yeah? I've studied physics, and now in our world we're talking suddenly about quantum computing becoming a reality, and that is a driving, interesting aspect of security in the next couple of decades. Actually, so I'm kind of remembering what we studied about quantum physics and the different stages and how this can now leap us forward in computing, but on the flip side, generate some key challenges.
Education's a wonderful thing.
It is always. It is always.
And do you have a way of escaping from it?
Well, the way of escaping and probably the way of linking it to Slovenia is, it's my first time at Risk, and it's clearly a fantastic conference here. I've been in Slovenia so far for risk-taking, so rather like paragliding and kayaking down the rivers here. So this is clearly a more secure and safe place here.
So you've done the whitewater rafting and all of that too?
A little bit of that, indeed.
It's cool, and I mean it temperature-wise here.
It is. It can be cool.
Thank you so much. We have a touch of where you're coming from, so I invite you to your presentation.
Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you very much.
Enjoy it.
Pullman.
So, I mean, many of you have heard about the risk of breaches, the cost of breaches, and we've seen suddenly, certainly in the last couple of days, also in the manufacturing and infrastructure side, just with Norsk Hydro losing control of some of their plants, how much this exposes customer. We will go now a couple of levels deeper than the speakers before me, but actually it links very well to the whole question of identity management and where the key risk for customers is. It's not only the risk in losing data and losing control of your infrastructure, it's definitely also the cost associated with that, cost being the exposure you have as well as the risk you have to get into fines. We're very, very focused here in Europe on a number of regulations, but I just came from an international conference in San Francisco. It is amazing how strong these regulations are also impactful worldwide. It is, of course, GDPR. We're talking about that as an industry for a number of years. But the whole fintech space, the whole payment and banking space is being disrupted as well. We have PSD2, we have the shift into the payment card industry standards. It's driving the awareness of new infrastructures, new key management standards, new crypto standards. And it's very necessary because some of our underlying industries, particularly in banking and payment, have been taking time in adopting that. And I will wrap at what Chris and me just jokingly mentioned, that to the whole topic of agility in our systems, being prepared for what is there to come in the next 10 to 20 years for these industries at the end. Very, very important. Europe is not only focused on protecting citizen data and privacy, but the European Commission has put up a new scheme now relevant in more and more industries as the regulation sets new standards for electronic identification of processes, for signing electronic trust services and electronic transaction. And it's key of what we believe will drive a single digital European market, and it's key of where we certify our products against. Who are we as Utimaco as a company? We are actually more than 50 years in IT. We are more than 35 years in IT security, headquartered in Aachen in Germany, have a strong establishment also in California. We are market-leading expert for securing critical infrastructures. And one of the most important things we do is provide crypto appliances, hardware security modules, which sit underneath your critical infrastructure and your root of trust. About 250 people in the company are mainly technicians, really skilled in cryptography and building highly secure solutions. What is driving the need for these critical infrastructures overall? It is the whole topic of digital transformation in the industries, but also really in the industry of things which touches all of us. A couple of days ago, the European Commission released the new framework for connected mobility, for the communication of cars with each other, of cars with the infrastructure, of cars with the streets. And that is one of the things, I mean, just getting literally here to Leszko, you need a car and it takes a couple of, well, sometimes hours to get there. It's something we'll do in a couple of years automated, and we want to trust that infrastructure. We have a huge amount of damages which are targeted against our secure infrastructures. Coming from RSA in San Francisco, I think all numbers were up. There's about $1 trillion of damages assumed in the next 5 years collectively. And that's just massive as we digitalize all our infrastructures. We need to secure that IoT. We need to secure all of these smart grids and networks. And that starts right at manufacturing. So it starts where you think about what identities are you getting on your devices, how do you secure them, how do you connect them, how do you manage those devices securely. So what is your trust infrastructure which links these devices with its communication. Secure updates. More and more devices need regularly to consume updates, but they need to be secure. You need to verify that they come from the right vendors. And the last weeks have shown how many risks you run into when CAs are compromised. So key management is an additional element to the root of trust, which is important to think through and to properly configure, secure, certify, and run agile as the standards and the algorithms develop in the future. I will give you a few examples, and not everybody of you may be in exactly that industry, but it is an example of how we are securing with partners together some of the most critical infrastructure. So here, Silver Spring Networks, a huge provider of smart grid energy infrastructure in the US, in Asia, we have similar partners here in Europe, uses hardware security modules and key management built on top to secure smart meter infrastructure and protect it against attacks. The particular here American energy industry have put in strong standards called NERC-ZIP to make sure that nobody tampers with that energy infrastructure. And I don't even want to quote the public examples where in the world villains or even nation-state actors tampered with that infrastructure. It has the element of protecting the identity of the infrastructure and making sure that only authorized users can, for instance, update tariffs. But it also has the element of privacy. There's almost nothing better to invade our privacy in our homes than a smart meter which touches very regularly on the consumption of energy. Another example are core mobile telecom networks. Utimaco HSMs sit in almost 50% of the mobile networks really in Europe and secure that the authentication of any of our mobile devices, so not only our phones but also our cars and everything which contains a mobile identity in the future is not being attacked with the man-in-the-middle attack. So the secure handshake when you roam, when you enter a network, usually ends up in a hardware security module. And it's very important now as we leap forward into the 5G world. In the 5G world, not everything roams back into the core network of a telco infrastructure, but a lot of identities are being managed and processes are being managed already in the radio access network. So as we discuss currently the security of 5G infrastructures in the whole of Europe, it's not only a matter of who are the vendors in those networks, it's really also a matter of the security standards. How do we trust the devices which only communicate in the radio access layer? Another area which is not only a security challenge, but really a business model challenge is who controls our mobility experience in the future. Cases we have done in Europe with car vendors or as well in the US are not only the car vendor itself connecting to the cars and communicating securely software updates, receiving securely back feedback for predictive maintenance or behavior actually of the user for liability reasons. But it's been very, very often also an element who controls the mobility experience. Is the key management of the car, of the automotive manufacturer, and Google, Apple, Facebook authenticate against that? And well, on the other side, Skoda, Volkswagen, BMW can decide who to permit into the cockpit experience, or is it actually the other way around? We're very close in Aachen to a kind of creative, disruptive electric car company, Street Scooter and Ego, and we were just discussing this week with them, they literally said, we're building an app with 4 wheels around that. And actually this app is first of all your mobility profile, your routes, your behavior, the way how you want to basically connect between different elements of mobility, public transportation, your private transportation, maybe your payment profile for the parking lot. This is a very different understanding than if you go to the classic car OEMs, and it requires key management and security. We protect a lot of critical infrastructures also on managing roads and payment schemes on roads, and in the future it will not be only us paying for street usage, but our cars may become payment devices. Yeah, you have first solutions where you can buy the car together with parking lots and basically schemes where you pay for parking. We have established key management as well in the protection of digital content. So here Irdeto is a good partner who protects digital media content, movie content all over the world when it's distributed to the consumer or to digital cinemas or hotel chains. And protecting that from counterfeit can happen on digital content, can happen as well with physical goods. Last but not least, it comes closer and closer to our own homes and to what surrounds us. The Internet of Things will require secure identity management inside the smart home and connecting into that smart home, but also registering and seeding devices in our home, whether it's cameras, whether it's temperature meter, whether it's any other sort of registered device, becomes very, very important and very key. Together with Nexus, for instance, we've provided a service for smart homes, which basically uses the root of trust inside an HSM. I mentioned the standards. About 50% of use cases we engage with are driven because customers want to apply to a certain standard. And the biggest, fastest moving area in Europe certainly is the eIDAS standard. It is the basis of the European Commission's plan to digitalize one single European market and one single European way to digitally trade goods. whether it's physical goods or whether it's digital goods. So we've been very leading and focused all of our resources on certifying against high-end protection profile. In this case, it's been one of the biggest investments we did as a company because we believe in this standard, and the standard being very, very relevant in enabling businesses to do easier and more secure transactions in the future. We have, as you may have heard, also acquired in the last year an American competitor, Atala, a long-standing hardware security module in the payment world. And we did that not only to expand market reach and get into the US. We did that particularly because we believe that the historic classic users of HSMs, which were very much in the banking and finance world, will grow together with all those Internet of Things examples I was just describing. And it will in the future be a much more, I would say, fluid way between companies who also provide payment services, need to secure that, need to be payment card industry compliant, need to have HSMs in their environment, as well as companies who disrupt the banking space, yeah, who use eIDAS, who use PSD2 to provide their services and disrupt it successfully. So we cover 360-degree portfolio in various form factors. I was talking a lot about the solution and the value of the key management inside. That is the biggest element. But of course, you have hardware installed. Otherwise, you couldn't certify against these high-end attack profiles. And you see one of our newest devices here. This is complex technology. And the whole subject of identity management and key management is challenging to implement. That's why you need experts, certified partners to do that, but you also need assistance. So it's been our belief that we can't just drop you as a customer who has the need for a secure root of trust, for a CA, for a signing service. We can't just drop you that technology, but we very much want to assist you along the way. And we want to assist you particularly along the way with development to make it easy for you. We have software simulators, we have software development kits. You don't even have to have the physical device in the beginning to start programming and play against that device with your application. But we also want to assist you with the really, really hard stuff of getting certified. And most of these services in those industries I was describing have the government mandate to get certified. One of the interesting elements talking with CISOs in the last weeks at the big conference in the US, but also a number of events here in Europe, was they described the identity management and the management of accounts, of machines, of situations like in privileged access being covered as one of the key attack vectors. So phishing still being one of the major key attack vectors into enterprises. But underneath the key challenge being key management and managing keys in a world where I would concede that all applications eventually will end up in cloud. And in cloud, the ownership of your data and the ownership of your application is very linked to where your keys are being managed, particularly if you are in a certified area. So avoiding as a customer, avoiding as somebody who provides an application, the lock-in into a monocloud situation is for many, I wouldn't say for every, but I would say for very big amount of customers, a key business challenge and a key business paradigm. We've focused with providing our cloud service on a multi-cloud environment, and therefore you don't have to pre-decide whether you believe all your applications will run in cloud A, B, Z. You can stay flexible with your application as you have your key management in a dedicated cloud connection provider. So being multi-cloud means for us also enabling customers to avoid the vendor lock-in. and then very flexibly shifting your application from an on-premise situation, from your own data center, from your own key management setup into the cloud and back. Being able to shift the load, being able to flexibly decide and remain key owner and key custodian of your key management. So own your key, own your application, and make it independent of the strategies of an individual cloud provider. You may want regionally to prioritize different cloud setups, and that's all fair. You shouldn't be locked in to one. Some have seen probably in the last 2 days that one of the big car sharing vendors is planning their IPO, and surprisingly, they mentioned a few weeks ago that about $1.40 or so per ride on Lyft goes into the cloud payment, into the AWS payment, and that has been consistently growing, and that actually it's very hard for them to get it out of that cloud again. And why? Why is that hard? It's not hard because of the application, it's very hard because of key management principles, key backup also being very, very locked into the cloud. So take your priorities where you put your application, but don't get dependent into where you host your key management and your keys. And getting back to the introductory point, this is infrastructure which is there to stay in many industries for 10 to 15 years. In the next 10 to 15 years, it's safe to assume that quantum computing will challenge classic encryption. I know there was in the session here last year an extensive description of the challenges. I can just report from many customer conversations. Everybody who puts in an infrastructure in IoT, in production, in manufacturing, in automotive, plans to not disrupt that architecture in the next 10 years. And within that time frame, you should get prepared for requirements of post-quantum safety, so post-quantum secure cryptography. The standardization organization in North America, as well as the work which here the European authorities are doing, are running a big competition at the moment, which has just moved 2 months ago into the second phase. So it's about 24 algorithms which are in that competition phase 2. It will still take a number of years until they have decided for a set of libraries of PQC-ready algorithms, so post-quantum safe cryptography. We can help customers today with testing some of those. We do that in very extensive partnerships together with the industry, with Microsoft, with LG, with some of the leaders like Isara, who are testing on our crypto device, on our hardware security module, how post-quantum safe cryptography affects really your infrastructure. And there is still a number of optimizations to come, so this is very much cutting-edge research which these companies and some universities do. We actually have here a booth where you can get this wonderful little booklet, which is actually not written for dummies, post-quantum crypto. It is a really, really great lecture. Some of our technicians and our CTO did together with Fraunhofer SET from Darmstadt. I would underline that we will have classic cryptography for the next 20, 30 years to come, but we will also have the introduction of post-quantum crypto. So the crypto agility of the whole stack, starting from the HSM, through the key management, through the identity management, through the application, is not an easy task. And if your timeline for migrating an architecture is a couple of years, plus maybe the requirement of keeping your data and your identity secure is another couple of years. So let's take just for the example, you need about 3 years to migrate, which is a short time for many industries, and you need maybe 5 to 10 years to keep data secure under any circumstances, then you're already in the median of assumed time when quantum computing will break classic encryption. And that means actually you're even technically too late today to migrate to that. And it's been a very, very insightful discussion here at our latest post-quantum crypto symposium with the head of Microsoft Research, with the head of Synopsys, who provide security into semiconductors, that they all urge the industry to move to crypto agility right now. And that's something we're here to help. We're here to talk with you about your challenges. We have a number of customers testing that actively today, of course, with the available candidates. There are no decided winners from that competition, and it's likely also not going to be just one winner, but a number of algorithms which will be awarded. And then there is optimization to come. So if anybody of you is implementing crypto infrastructure for, I would say, the next decade or so, keep that in mind. Come to us, talk to us, come to one of our symposiums we do here. With that, I wanted to give you a forward look where we as Utimaco focus our research now on, where we want to provide the root of trust also for the next 35 years to come or even longer. So doubling the time we are in this industry. It is a highly, highly interesting challenge to help our customers think through their demands and think through their crypto architectures. I have actually two excellent colleagues with me who will, and if I can ask them to stand up for a moment or so, Ellen and Victor, who will run a workshop also during this conference. So whether you have a need in signatures or IDAS or CA, crypto infrastructure, or even PQC, come to us during the days or even during the party. Thank you very much for that. And with that, I give you a few minutes of your conference time back. Chris.
Okay, thank you.